For this video, I am using a new microphone setup, so if you'd like to leave some feedback on how you think it sounds, leave a comment down below. Thank you for doing that. Let's now get into the video. We are of course here for Snapshot 24W03A, which is for Minecraft 1.20.5, and it does include some changes for 1.21. This is the first snapshot of 2024, and we're going to start off with the 1.20.5 changes. First of all, changes to the spawn chunks. If you don't know what a chunk is, well, we're inside of one right now. It's a 16 by 16 grid within the world, and this is how the game basically saves what's in the world. It saves it in chunks. So let's use our imagination for a moment and imagine that we've got a 5 by 5 grid of chunks. Well, if the player is standing in this one here and our render distance is set to 2, then that's how much of the world is going to be loaded in each of these directions. And so if we were to bump the render distance up, we would be loading more and more chunks off into the distance. Now, the spawn chunks are a part of your world that does this by default if the player is there or not. So when I start to move around from chunk to chunk, it means that we load some off in the distance of the direction we're traveling, and behind us, some of those chunks will unload. Now, the default distance for spawn chunks is 10, and if we imagine that each of the numbers are essentially a chunk, it's this green area here that the game will be loading inside of your world regardless of where you are. This will take up some of your computer's resources, and so changes have been made so you can have control over how many spawn chunks you want loaded, or none at all if that's what you're after. So the default radius is going to be 2, and it counts it different from view distance. 1 is the single chunk in the middle, and then the other 9 around it would account for 2. If you were to set your radius to 3, that would be all of these chunks. This is done with a new game rule called Spawn Chunk Radius. Its new default is going to be 2, meaning it loads 9 chunks at the spawn point of your world. And this is 98% smaller than the previous amount, which was set to 10. And you can do that inside of this game rule. The maximum you can set it to is 32, and the smallest is 0, which disables it in its entirety. And if you're not sure how this affects you as a player, well, if you're getting poor performance in your single player world, it could be an idea to lower the amount of spawn chunks that are loaded. And if you play on a server, this means you can have a part of your world that's always loaded. Again, if your server's struggling, you can lower it, or you can take advantage of having a bigger spawn area that's always loaded. So yeah, the choice is now yours, and as always, it's nice to see various components of the game being put into the hands of the player so you can make a choice about how the game is functioning. Okay, our next change related to this version of Minecraft is regarding the end dimension. When an entity enters or leaves the end dimension, like this item has just done, it will now stay loaded for 15 seconds. Now, the area that is loaded for 15 seconds is the destination of that item. So now the overworld would be loaded for at least 15 seconds. This change has been made so the behavior is consistent with that of nether portals. The next changes in this update are technical and actually quite interesting. We have new item tag lists. This is great for making data packs and custom experiences. As you'll see here, it all relates to what enchantments can be put on a different type of items, like your legging, armor, swords, a weapon in general, or a trident. So if you think that the Swift Sneak enchantment should go onto boots, you could make a data pack to do that. Now, the next tags are for entity types. That could be a mob, for example, and each of them relate to a specific behavior. So like entities that cannot be affected by poison and regeneration are now in a list, and that list can be customized, meaning you can pass this behavior onto other mobs. The other tags include entities that will be allies of the illagers, entities that have the opposite effect when they're dealt harm or healing, and then entities that will cause a pufferfish to puff up will now be in a list, along with those sensitive to the bane of arthropods, as well as impaling, and lastly, wither friends down the bottom here. So yeah, you can change which mobs the wither will attack or not attack, and all of those other behaviors I just described. Now, along with this, transfer and cookie packets have been added, which sounds highly technical. It is explained here, but a little beyond me. I think the gist is you'll be able to transfer additional information like what resource pack and data packs you're using, and it'll provide a better experience on big multiplayer servers. Before we continue with this video, I just want to say if you're here and you're not subscribed, that might be something you want to do, and then you'll get notified of when I upload future Minecraft update videos. Anyway, thanks for considering. Let's crack on. So next up are changes to the wolves and armadillo. And you might notice down here in my hotbar that the wolf armor has a new texture. And here is a comparison to the old texture. Now you may also notice that the dog collar looks a little beefed up. This is how it previously looked. It now wraps around these pixels on the back here. And the wolf armor texture has changed along with this. You can see it now covers up part of the collar. It looks really cool. I think this is a big improvement. And to jog your memory, this is how it looked before. Nowhere near as pretty, if you ask me. There has also been a bug correction as well. When I punch my dog, which I do not enjoy, you can see the whole thing turned red. Sorry, my friend, I've got to educate the people. You'll see here that now only the dog turns red and the armor stays the same color. Next up, it's the turn of the Armadillo, who has been retextured and looks even cuter than before. So a good way to do a comparison is with a no AI mob, so it just stays exactly where it is and we can see it from all sides and angles. So here's the old one. It's a little boxier, a little darker, a little less shaded, I think. And one of the really big changes is the eyes, which were on the front and are now on the side of the mob. And I'm not sure if you noticed it, but the shading of the scoot changed slightly. Here's the old one. It's a little less saturated. So the Armadillo spawns in the Savannah biome, and as of this update, it'll also be able to generate naturally in the Badlands biome. And it receives some new functionality as well. If I go ahead and get in this boat and then spawn the Armadillo, it's going to go into its shocked state. And its new behavior is that spiders and cave spiders will run away from this. So while we're in the boat, I'm going to spawn a spider over here. Don't take damage, buddy. Run away from this guy, which you're not doing. Oh, there was a not in this sentence. My bad. So we just mean a regular armadillo. Forget the boat. Look at that. They go scrambling away. What about when we got one in a boat? Yep, they'll go away. This is probably faster than moving spiders with water, just an observation here. They really do run away. So if you've got a cave spider spawner or a regular spawner for spiders, you can now introduce some armadillos positioned around to send the spiders where you want to go. I think this will make a really fun project for a spider farm. So now it is the turn of the breeze, which had a change to it that sounded rather exciting, but probably isn't. If I go ahead and shoot this thing, you'll see that the projectile bounces right off of it. All projectiles are going to bounce off of this thing. But something unique it's doing is it's coming back towards me. So it goes back in the direction of the player that shot it. So over here, I did some experiments of like shooting it with dispensers, but if the projectile comes from somewhere else, it's not going to get deflected back towards the player. So I thought there might be some cool use here, but really it's just a case of your own projectiles will come back towards you. So you got to remember not to use projectiles on the breeze. And while we're doing the 1.21 changes, I should point out that a block of copper being changed into a grate, this is any type, will now be 1-for-1 in the stone cutter. It used to give you 4, whereas if you did the crafting recipe, it would cost 4-for-4 like this. So now you get the same amount of blocks out of both. Okay, lastly, we have changes to the villager trading rebalance, which might not even be a part of 1.21. In fact, I think the underlying tech of this change is just in 1.20.5. This change adds a tag that a villager can have to bypass NPT data on its trades. But let's say you wanted to trade like a map or a pick, and this one here has been damaged. That means it's storing some NPT data. So with this tag, you can basically accept an item that has some different tags attached to it. So in the villager rebalance, it's these expert trades over here that take advantage of this. You'll now be able to trade in damaged diamond armor. So we've reached the end of the video. If you enjoyed it, leave a like to support the channel. Make sure you're subscribed to catch future snapshots, and hopefully I'll see you next week with another one. Bye bye.